So what is DevOps? Well, the funny thing about when you say what is DevOps, you ask 10 people what DevOps is, you're probably going to get 20 different answers, right? But at Microsoft, DevOps means something very specific to us. DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable the continuous delivery of value to our end users. And now notice I said that really, really carefully, right? And the reason why is because, well, one of them, that definition was created by my manager, so if I get that wrong, right? The other thing is because every word of that was designed very specifically, right? The key is we want to continuously deliver value to our end users, and this is vital in today's world.
Hey there, my name is Jay Gordon. Welcome to DevOps Fireside Chat. This is a conversation that we're going to be having about DevOps. So what we're going to do today is just take a look at what's new in DevOps. And I'm very lucky to have a really great crew of people that are going to be having this conversation with me. But to get it started, I want to introduce you to this extremely diverse, awesome group of people. So let's take a quick look at this.
That video still gives me goosebumps, man.
Look at this whole crew that we've got here. You know what? I am so happy that I'm able to kind of present how cool this is. And let me tell you, this is a really unique opportunity that I believe, we're going to have for this next 1 hour. And so to get us all kind of started, we took a look at that little trailer, and I thought that was a really nice way to kind of get us all lined up for today. And what we're going to do, and where's Damo? There you are. I've got everybody. I think I can only do 6 at a time. I thought I would do more. Steve, you're somewhere in here, and you'll be here when I get out of here.
I see everyone.
Oh, yeah.
I can see everyone.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Everybody's here. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is the first time, and we're doing it live for all of you. So let's continue. We have the League here, the League of Excellent Cloud Developer Advocates.
Steve, say it again for him, Steve.
The League of Extraordinary Cloud DevOps Advocates.
Yeah,
Yes.
extraordinary. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I needed someone to get it out. I've got this New York mush mouth sometimes.
Understood.
So to kind of get this all started, what I'd really like you all to do is kind of introduce yourselves to everybody that's watching. And I'm going to just go off one at a time. Donovan.
My name is Donovan Brown. I'm now a partner program manager at Microsoft. I started on Monday, so in a new role. But I am the manager that originally hired all the people that you're talking to right now to be what turned out to be the League.
That's pretty damn awesome. And so we've got some more people. And next on my list is Steven. Hey, Steven.
Hey, so I'm Steve Marowski, and I am a principal cloud advocate, and I'm on the Methods and Practices DevOps team working for Abel, and the and came onto the team almost 4 years ago when it was founded by Donovan. So,
and named the team.
Yep, and I named the team. Thanks to no joke goes unpunished, or you make a joke. So I suppose since you brought it up, I'll just quickly mention where the genesis of that. So Donovan and I are having a chat in DMs after my interview process, and as I was about to come onto the team, and I'm like, have you seen the movie League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? Right? Not high quality movie, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. And so I borrowed the name, made a little tweak, and said, can't wait to join Donovan Brown's League of Extraordinary Cloud DevOps Advocates.
Yeah,
very awesome.
It became a hashtag and a website, and it spiraled out for 4 years. So yeah,
excellent. Next on my list, Damo. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, I'm Damian Brady. I am in Australia. I'm the only non-US person on the call, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Today, yeah. I joined about the same time as Steve. We all kind of joined Donovan's team at about the same time. So I'm in the same position pretty much, working for Abel now that Donovan's moved up, focusing on DevOps as usual, but ML ops, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. So I was doing some like 5 minutes before this call. I'm like furiously getting pipelines working and stuff. It's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, yeah. So
very cool. Next up, Jess.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Deen, and I also work for Abel on the DevOps part of Modern Practices. And I was the last person to join the league. And it was interesting because I don't think I know Donovan was not looking for me. And I wasn't necessarily looking for his team, but the second we clicked, it all clicked, and it's been awesome ever since. And just like Damian, I was also working on pipelines right before the call. So I feel like that's just what we do over here. We just sing DevOps.
You're doing the DevOps. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Doing all the
Very
DevOps
cool.
things.
And then absolutely last, but not least, not least at all, is Abel.
So
The absolutely last person to introduce, but not the least. Okay.
That's right, Donovan. That's right. So my name is Abel, Principal Cloud Advocate and the DevOps lead at Microsoft. And as you can tell, most of these people are my people. So that makes me very, very happy. And even makes me even happier is I do not report to Donovan.
As of Monday.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we've got this really great crew right here. And I'm really thankful because it gives us this opportunity as the new year begins to kind of look back on what happened, but look forward to what we're all going to be working on. And when you think about DevOps is always about moving forward, new initiatives, new changes. So I'd love to get you all to kind of start on the first question. And I'm going to allow you to kind of just vibe with it. I'd love, Donovan, for you to start.
Sure.
But then I'm just going to kind of remove myself from the situation. We're going to watch who comments and send you some questions. So it may pop back in. Cool. But I'm going to ask the first question. And the first question is, you've all started new initiatives at companies before. What's it like the beginning of the year and starting new projects within DevOps? Go for it.
Interesting. It's always exciting, right? Everyone's gung-ho, everyone's ready to go. But I think what a lot of people do is they have the tendency to bite off more than they should chew at the beginning of the year. And they want to go build this ultimate pipeline that didn't exist on December 31st that they think is going to now be materializing on January 5th. And what I encourage people to do instead is to focus on one area that hurts the most and just fix that one thing and then have your pipeline kind of grow over time. And it happens to all of us, right? I remember X-copying a file to IIS for X-copy deployment. And that was, trust me, that was light years beyond what we were doing before that. And then we started bringing in testing, and then we started bringing in our databases. And right now, security is crazy hot, right? DevSecOps is bringing up. And as you mature on your DevOps pipeline, you seem to add more and more and more to that pipeline because you see what it can do. Infrastructure as code is something that Abel and I talk to our customers about all the time, about bringing that into your pipeline too. So getting started is always exciting, but I would just caution you to don't bite off more than you can chew, and just focus on what hurts most and fix that, and then move forward.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot of places we can go with tooling to start out the new year, but I think when we start the new year, we need to look back and see what actually hurt, to take Donovan's idea and extend it a little bit from the last year. And for a lot of folks, remote work became a very high priority, right? And so how do we DevOps together while we're alone and while we're separate? And so one of the things I think that we can take from last year and apply to this year's efforts is really looking at how do we build that shared context? How do we build that vision of where we're going together? And one of the things that we do, that we've got some stuff posted about on the DevOps documentation on docs.microsoft.com is around objectives and key results, right? And how we use those to build a shared goal and shared work streams, even as we're off doing our own individual things, how we're all working to contribute to the same goal. And I think that's one of the things that's missed most when we start talking about DevOps, because everyone wants to focus on the tools, everyone wants to focus on the team building and a lot of these other things, but ultimately we're being paid to deliver results for our organizations. And if we're all running off in a bunch of different directions, we're not going to make the progress that we need to. So especially being remote, especially being disconnected, your manager's not standing over everyone's shoulder. You can't just tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, let's talk about something, right? Being able to build that shared context, that shared direction, and those shared measures that we're going to look at, I think is absolutely critical.
So I got a question for y'all, since you guys are here, because everyone loves talking about tooling, and I totally agree with you, Stephen. But people love to talk about tooling. What do y'all think is the next big thing in terms of tooling, right? We've got CI/CD more or less down pretty well. We've figured out how to do database DevOps. We kind of figured out DevSecOps. Not everybody implements it, but we kind of get all of that. What's next? What's the next big thing that's going to hit the DevOps landscape?
What Damian's working on, right? That's the next big thing, right? Machine learning, AI, it's huge, and there's not really good solutions in my opinion. Damian?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd even make it broader than that. Like ML is kind of the focus I'm getting at now, like these machine learning projects. But there's also, all these other tools and things that we're seeing for, I can't remember the term that we use, but the people who are doing Power Apps and things like that, the community developers, or what is it? Yeah.
Local,
all of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah,
all of that kind of stuff. Like these are all applications that are much, much easier for people to, contribute in different ways to the organization. It's not just somebody cutting code. How do we get that code into production now? It's predictive models generated by machine learning and automatic tooling for machine learning and all that kind of stuff. There's the developers who are doing stuff by using Power Apps. Those things still need to be controlled. So that whole process of all the stuff that we've learned over the last decade or two for Agile and DevOps to get all that stuff into the hands of users as quickly and safely and efficiently as possible, applying that stuff to all of the other products that we're doing, like all the products we're producing, regardless of that
Power Apps thing is the system developer and bringing that. That's been a challenge. From access on, right? Access-based applications, and then we saw light switch. Like, hey, let's take these access-based things and let's put some tooling around it to make it easier for people to build these. But then we can convert them into something that developers can maintain. And now we've got Power Apps, which makes stuff even easier. How do we bring that into a DevOps workflow as well? Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
some great.
From the specific perspective of the machine learning stuff, like that's so much easier to do than it was before, and it's so much more mature. But the people who are doing that work, the data scientists, the machine learning experts, they're not developers. They don't know Git. They don't know Azure pipelines. They don't know GitHub Actions. Like, they don't know these tools and the processes that we've been learning over the last several years. But that stuff is really making its way into more and more organizations. So we need that maturity. So that's kind of why I'm focusing in that area. Like,
So
I can
love,
leave all the standard stuff to the rest of you. You can do that stuff. I'll do that.
I'd love to talk. I'd love to ask Jessica. You've seen some of this maturation in the tooling. As far as implementation, deployment, which do you feel are the tools that have been kind of the next big thing to help people deploy easier? Like, what tool do you feel you're really excited about?
Let me think on that for a second. I wanted to jump on to what Damian was saying also with machine learning and AI and finish answering also Abel's question. Is I completely agree that AI and machine learning is, we're already seeing it kind of infiltrate now. And I feel like not only is it going to add maybe a new area or something new to DevOps and give more power to things like Power Apps and Logic Apps and all of that, but we're also going to see it enhance and make smarter the DevOps principles and practices we're already using. So for example, when we get into testing and we have our functional tests, there's companies out there that are already enhancing visual testing or pixel-to-pixel testing using AI as a backer. And that wasn't possible before. There's tons of companies from major customers or major companies who have pushed updates to production where functionally everything works on the website, only the add to cart button now matches the background and so does the text. So how do you find those problems? And the answer to that, I do feel, goes back to artificial intelligence, machine learning. You can take the intelligence behind that and then add it into other areas of your DevOps process to make it smarter, to make it more efficient, more reliable, and to ultimately build more confidence in there.
Yeah,
so
I love
just
that.
to be clear as well.
Yeah, because for what we're doing with Damon is we're trying to help the AI community actually do DevOps better. And what you're pointing out is that we're then going to take AI to be able to do DevOps better, which is kind of an interesting way to look at that.
And I think that's the end goal, right? Like when we think of the definition of DevOps, which I don't believe anyone actually defined it. I'm going to Donovan Brown here. I'm going to beat him to it. So, and fun fact, by the way, about the definition is Donovan actually spent 30 days laboring over this. Every single word has very intentional value. Yeah. So DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to our end users. So the most important word is value, right? That creates our unity right on our dev and ops team. Like if we can get both of those dev and ops minded individuals, get them on the same path towards that same common goal, we're already going to start working together. And I feel that that's going to be the same for different tech communities, whether it's AI and they need DevOps. DevOps is also going to be able to benefit from AI. And that's where I go back to the definition of DevOps every time, because what I love about that definition is how it starts. The first part of it is it starts with people. And so if we get people, regardless of what their background is, on the same page, we can actually do more together. We can help enhance our processes. We can help enhance other processes. We can work together to have something that we haven't had before, which is where I was going from the artificial intelligence and DevOps. That's what I feel we're seeing. I
just want to jump in with terminology as well. So ML Ops is the DevOps applied to machine learning projects. AI Ops is what's the term for the other way around. So ML applied to those things. So just in case you're searching for it, if you're watching as well. But I love I love that interaction. The two things the same overlap, but in the opposite direction. It's awesome.
That's what we've seen throughout the past evolution of us getting to DevOps now, right? I mean, when we started enhancing processes and practices and really trying to have standardization, there were different areas of technology that were kind of a mystery, especially when abstraction started coming to be, and then databases and schema swaps and all these different things. We started to have to work with DBAs, developers, ops. Like you're slowly having all the communities converge, which is the end goal in the first place, so that we can all work together. But AI and machine learning up until this point, I feel that's the community that hasn't really converged yet. And that's one of the areas that I'm really excited in. As far as the new technology, that's way above my pay grade. I haven't written any new technology. But I can say that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's being worked on in the open source community that's really awesome to see. And I believe actually, Donovan, you're getting to do some cool stuff with some new technologies.
Yeah, and the incubations team. And the first question I ask is how does that apply to DevOps? Like, how do I take Dapper and apply it to a DevOps pipeline? So they're getting a lot of DevOps questions in the incubations team.
By the way, just jumping in here, what exactly is Dapper for all of our viewers?
Dapper is basically a sidecar that's going to take care of all the heavy lifting for writing microservices. So you need a state store. You need to be able to have discovery of your invocation of your other microservices. All that stuff is taken care of for you by just having the sidecar run for you inside of Kubernetes or even locally on your dev machine. So it's again, writing a microservice, that's easy. Having that microservice play nice with everyone else and deploying it, that gets hard. And that's the part that Dapper comes in and actually helps you out with.
Cool. Hey, Jay, you're muted.
Hey, everybody, I'm back. Sorry, everybody's muted nowadays. Yeah. I've got a question.
Cool.
This question actually came from Glenn on Twitter. I've shortened it up and I'll give the whole question. So much focus is on tools for the code, but what about the tools to help team culture improve, particularly in a remote COVID environment? What's one tool or technique that you see will really help teams both bond together or help teams deliver together?
We're using one right now, right? We're all of us are using video conferencing, and that's something that I think we all need to leverage in this remote world. And we do focus a lot on tools because tools are fun and we're geeky and we're teching out, but do not focus on the tools, right? It's delivering value, right? You'd be surprised at how much value you can deliver without a tool. People always say, hey, Donovan, we want to adapt DevOps. What product should we buy? I'm like, you should buy a stack of sticky pad notes and a whiteboard. Like, that's what you need to do DevOps correctly. You don't need software. I mean, to do Agile correctly, you don't need software to do that. Stop thinking that software is going to ride in and save your world, right? It's not. And as Jessica said a moment ago, the people are the most important part. And unfortunately, they're the most difficult part. Because if your people don't believe, it doesn't matter what products you buy. It doesn't matter what tools you use. If your people do not believe, you're going to fail, right? So let's get your people on the right mindset. Let's get them understanding that value is what we're all in this to do. And stop telling your devs to change the servers and then your ops to protect the servers. Let's tell them both to deliver value to our customer. And they're going to naturally start to work together. So I don't know that I'd ever point at a particular tool and say that tool is going to make your team collaborate better. But what you want to do, especially in a world where we're all separated the way that we are, this face-to-face as best that we can get is extremely powerful, right?
And I think another big area, and probably one of the first things you should do, is to stop talking about tools. Stop focusing about tools. It's not about tools. I do, in every single demo I think I've done over the past year, I do the same exact set of tasks in Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, Jenkins, CodeFresh, Travis CI. I mean, I make it alphabet soup to make a point that it's not about the tools. It's about the process. And in order to define the process, you have to talk to the people. And in order to talk to the people, you have to do exactly what we're doing now, which is having these conversations. And to add to that, also, once you've had these conversations and you've gone through that process and you're in your feedback loop and you're reviewing it for your next sprint, have, what is it? And I'm blanking on the terminology now, but you have, when you have your postmortems, make sure that they're blameless. You're not assigning blame. You're using that feedback loop to continue moving towards that same end goal of continuously delivering value.
Yeah.
I'll play my, okay, go ahead, Abel.
I like half of the question, right? Because it's asking about culture. And that's insanely important, because if you have the right culture, you can have virtually no tool sets, you can have virtually no process, but if you have the right culture, you can still succeed. But if you have the wrong culture, you can have the best tools, most expensive, flashy tools in the world, have the best process coaches in the world, but guess what? You're still going to fail. So again, like Jessica and everyone else has said, it's not about the tools. The tools do help enable, but that's not the main point.
So I'll play my role on this team, which is to be the contrarian. And so it is about the tools. Because the tools can reinforce your process, right? The right tool is going to help make the right things easy and the wrong things hard. For this, there's two ways. There's two ways I would look at it. For bringing your team together and getting and reinforcing your culture, You got to start with like boards or issues and projects in GitHub, right? Azure boards or some planning tool. And now, tip of the hat to the rest of my team. It's not about which tool you go and pick. You gotta make that evaluation, find whatever, but pick something and start with it. If it can represent a sticky note, because we're remote here, so you can't move a sticky note on my wall, right? If it can resemble a sticky note and I can make notes on it, and we can divide something up into lanes so we can move work across. The whole idea is let's get the work visible. Right, everything that's being worked on needs to be visible, because if it's not, that's where we're losing things. I love Dominica Durandis's book on making work visible and the 5 time thieves and kind of the stuff that surfaces there. But really getting everything out there so that we can reinforce what work is actually happening, so we can tie it back to those OKRs, we can tie it back to those measures, so we can make sure that we're working on the things that are important together. That helps bring our team together. Now, if we're looking at it from a development perspective, live share, right? We're remote. How do we pair? Live share is one of the best tools I've seen for doing that. We can share consoles. We can do some port sharing. We're sharing code base. It is a great tool for doing that.
I would even use live share if you're sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's like it's such a good product for that. It's even really convenient for that too. And I think it's interesting when I'm listening to you, I'm like, well, I don't know if I agree about the tools, but then in the world we're living in now, where we're all remote, the emphasis on tools is a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Right. To your point, Stephen, like you said, sticky notes great for Agile, but not when you're 1,000 miles away, right? That sticky note doesn't do me any good. So to that point, I completely agree with what you're saying. That now, probably more than in the past, tools are more important than they were. Still not the most important. Like your people still got to get on board, because if I don't use Azure boards, it doesn't matter how good of a product it is, and I'm remote, and you sit over my shoulder and make me use it. So, like again, there's a balance between tools and having the people and the culture believe. Because you can be successful without doing Agile, let alone without a tool doing Agile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this is interesting to me, because one of the things that I keep thinking of that I thought of initially, Donovan, when you said Post-it notes and a whiteboard, and then even when Stephen was talking how it's not about the tools, but it's about like what the tools can represent when you're using boards and all these things in that communication. And back in the day, pre-COVID, when we used to get into rooms together and we would do value stream mapping, that's something that's completely not technical, that isn't talked about as often now, or I haven't talked about it as often now, maybe. But that's a great exercise to, I guess, get your team on the same page, in particular, to get your developers and operations on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I come from a background of ops. Abel, Donovan comes from a background of dev. Stephen and
More ops.
Damian also your dev.
He's kind of weird.
Stephen is kind of in the middle, but we all have our very unique backgrounds. And what happens is when you are working, especially on a remote team, regardless of whether you're using Azure boards or Jira or whatever board system that you're using to inventory your current assignments and tasks and sprints, the developer doesn't understand the operations point, and the operations doesn't understand the developer point. And if there's manual things or heroic efforts that you're doing throughout your process, you'll actually be able to improve that process, be more in alignment with moving towards that value goal by being on the same page and having empathy for each other, realizing the roadblocks that you're coming through. Like when we would do these value stream exercises in customers and walk them through different things, you would see the light bulb. Usually it'd be the first day, like people are in there like, I don't want to be here. There's no code, there's no tech. But by the second and third day, all of a sudden they're like, wait, you're doing that? Oh my gosh, I can help you with that. I can write a script that can automate this. And then, oh, you're doing this? I can give you a test environment. You start to see that collaboration come together, and it has nothing to do with code and computers and tools. It's about the mindset that you're approaching everything with. You're approaching with an open mindset and an empathetic mindset.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, as somebody who's in a different country than everyone else, that if you're in the same room, those conversations happen, and that is, as long as you have a culture of people talking to each other and so on, that's fine. But with everybody remote, I think that's where that culture can improve because of the tools. So if you don't have tools that enable these conversations, if you are hiding behind, well, no, we've got a specification document, it's over there in SharePoint or whatever, or hey, it's on the work, it's a description in the work item. Like if you're not having those conversations and you don't have a way to do that, and the tooling has to enable that now because we're not in the same room, then that's not going to be good for your culture. And I know we've all kind of said this in different ways,
Sure.
but yeah, it's something that I'm pretty aware of being being remote from everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a challenge that we were having long before COVID. Like we were a lot more and more of our teams are graphically dispersed, right? All of our teams are now. Because even before COVID, I think actually none of us live in the same place. No. Right? Like we were living this life before it happened, like because not one of us live in the exact same city or state. So it's interesting for sure. Steven, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, some of the most powerful tools in my laptop bag for years have been a couple packs of sticky notes and a couple packs of Sharpies. Yeah. And every conference, every meeting I would go to, I would have those in my bag because more often than not, they would be coming out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. One thing I want to double click on what Jessica was saying. She was talking about like making sure that the devs and the ops, like they see eye to eye and they come together. But we also have to remember it's more than just dev and ops. The name is DevOps, but it's so much more than that. That's why security is so big. The DBA has to be on board. The quality assurance has to be on board. Like everyone really, it's more about collaboration across the entire group. I tell everybody, if you have any hand in delivering this piece of software, this idea into production, you're a part of this team, and we all need to be collaborating and talking because whatever role you play, we need to make sure that there's as little friction as possible between the handoffs between you and to whatever is next after you. So it's called DevOps, but please don't think it's just about dev and the ops. It's about security. It's about database admins. It's about everybody in your organization who has a hand in getting your code into production.
Data scientists, as Damian, and
everybody
about machine learning and AI.
Everybody.
It's interesting because I do want to make sure that we talk about that point on how it is everyone in the room. There's a quote that I use, I think now lately in every session that I say, but it's actually an Agent's Marvel of S.H.I.E.L.D. quote. The steps you take don't have to be big. They just have to lead you in the right direction. The first step is understanding the step of those around you, which ones they're also taking and what part of the team that they're coming from, and thinking of it from a global team perspective. I think one of the technologies or areas in technology and DevOps that I'm most excited for is the shift in inclusion for every member of the team. If Donovan, one of the things that you said was, if you are part of delivering the software in any way, shape, or form, certain people are part of delivering the software that are PMs that might not speak code, but they still should be a part of what's going on, of the postmortems, of the review process. And historically, that was always challenging. And so one of the demos that I've been pumped about lately is something called Bridge to Kubernetes, where you can link it in to your DevOps process to actually have a review URL included, which now gives somebody visual insight into what was just pushed into which environment, and brings that inclusion of every member of the team to make sure everyone is on the same page.
Yeah,
that is a shift that I'm seeing that we previously didn't really consider before. There was very much like the left and right side of the teams.
Yeah,
I think that's huge because it's not just bringing in some of your non-technical product folks, right? It's people across the business, right? Because maybe the product is driving some marketing function, maybe it's a sales function, maybe it is a legal function, right? There are our software is enabling capabilities for our business. They're not, unless you're a tech company and your customers are all technical, right? There's some other aspect of a business that you are enabling, and so that they are part of your DevOps process as well. And can't forget about that.
No, for sure. Go ahead, Abel.
I just want to double click on this, what Steve just said, because it's so important. I just had an EBC and I was talking to a CEO. And
can you expand EBC, because not everyone watching me.
Briefing conference, right? So this is where executives from enterprises around the world come to Microsoft, except we do this virtually now. And then we give them like a dog and pony show and get them excited about Microsoft technologies, right? Probably I shouldn't say dog and pony show, but whatever.
Yeah.
So the latest one that I was doing, I was talking to the CEO, And I brought up exactly what everyone was saying, which is the DevOps pipeline and your DevOps process is far more than just dev and ops. And based on what he was saying, I was like, not only should your devs be involved in this pipeline, and the ops should be involved in this pipeline, and your DBAs should be involved in the pipeline. With the way you guys have things set up and what you need, legal should be involved as well. And he looked at me like I was insane. Why should legal be involved? And I started pointing out, well, don't they care about these things? Don't they care about these things? And, the light bulb slowly started to go off. I mean, like you said, Donovan, we do call it DevOps, but it's far more than just devs and operations folks.
That's a great point, man. That's a really good one. I don't think I'd even thought about that yet, but you're absolutely right. There's legal ramifications for pushing software that's not ready to go, that has a breach in it, that's just leaked PII, that needs to use the wrong licensed piece of software. Of course, we have scanners for that now, but yeah, there's an aspect there for that as well. It's really interesting.
But even those scanners have thresholds, and so as a business, you need to be able to decide what those tolerances are, right? So what are our tolerances for bringing and with the changing licensing, especially like around like the server side permissive license and stuff that's coming up, right? Those things are changing on a rapid basis.
Yeah.
And those things are part of our pipelines and being updated automatically. And if we're not watching for some of that, there could be some major ramifications. I've definitely run into that in previous jobs where license on a component changed and it put at jeopardy the whole product that we shipped.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a really good point, Abel. One of the other things that we talk about a lot with customers, because we're talking about DevOps, and sometimes I realize that a lot of our customers aren't ready to have this conversation. I went to a company once in Germany, and I did this amazing DevOps talk, and they were all excited, but then they were all glassy-eyed, realizing that we're not ready for this. Like, we're so bad at writing software that why are we trying to ship it fast? Right? Like, the last thing we want to do is ship this as often as we can. So we want to ship this as infrequently as possible because it's really painful and it's really bad. And they had me come back like within a month and say, Donovan, what do we need to know first? And I did an entire hour just on Agile. And I've been doing that more and more, where people realize that if you're not really good at Agile, you trying to be really good at DevOps now, it's like, to me, it's like you're not fixing the root of the problem. You got to first be producing an increment of shippable software. If the software that you're producing isn't shippable, like, why are we building a pipeline for it? And what I also like about being really good at Agile, when you're really hitting your stride, and every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, you literally have a potential shippable piece of software, and then your leadership wonders why that software isn't in production. Having that DevOps conversation is a lot easier then. Like, oh, the reason why is because we don't have a process to deploy it. It's completely manual. There's so many checks and balances. We need an automated process. So trying to put the cart before the horse can sometimes be a challenge. So I tell a lot of people, focus on being really good at Agile first, because that is going to shine a light on the fact that you're really bad at deploying software, and that you need DevOps to come in and allow you to ship that software as quickly as you're able to deliver that value. Steve was
I think that sets the precedent for your journey with DevOps, right? Like, you're going to have to constantly get really good at the first thing that hurts, which might be Agile. And then you get really good with creating your pipeline. And then you get really good at writing better tests.
Yep.
And then you get it sets the precedent for your journey moving forward, because you're always going to have to get really good, especially when your application is a moving target, right? You're constantly making updates. Certain times we end up removing software features. Like, there's certain things that are constantly changing, where if you're not good at the very beginning with the fundamentals, it's going to make that rest of that journey damn near impossible.
Yeah, and that's the journey most places take, right? There's this. If you look at like the results from like the State of DevOps report and a lot of the research that you see coming out around DevOps, the McKinsey report and a bunch of these other ones, you see this shape that where you start speeding up your software development process and your delivery process as you start to adapt to Agile, as you start to adopt some DevOps processes. And I think you can actually, you can bring in both. But all of a sudden, things get really, really hard, and productivity takes a huge dip because the world is on fire. Because now we've learned that, hey, guess what? Shipping software that sucks with not a lot of tests and with very little controls sucks, because now we're fighting fires all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And instead of fighting one long blaze because we've shipped it and then we spend 6 months putting it out till the next cycle, now we're fighting new fires every day, every couple days, every week.
Yeah, but if it hurts, you do it more often, and you're going to fix that. If that nightmare only happens once a year or twice a year, it's like, yeah, it really sucks twice a year, but it's only twice a year, right? So I'm not going to invest a lot of time to fix this because, yeah, it sucks, but only twice a year. If it sucks every day, you're going to fix that, right? Because like this hurts every freaking day, and I'm going to go back and fix it.
So this cracks me up because this evolution that we're talking about, I think we've all gone through that. and I started thinking of all the projects I've done with Donovan. We've been writing code together, I think, for 20 years now. Right?
Yeah.
It's been a while. And when we first started, we couldn't even write the software correctly, let alone on time. We would write code that was not what the end users wanted. It was so freaking buggy. It was horrible, right? So to figure out how to write the right software, we had to learn Agile. And then I distinctly remember being on a project with you, Donovan, where we got Agile down and it was working sprint after sprint.
Yeah.
We were producing shippable units of code and we couldn't get it into the servers fast enough. We just couldn't. And so then DevOps started making sense. Oh, we can build it. We can push it into production. All this is great. And of course, the next problem we ran into is, okay, we can get the web code in, but what about our database?
The database in there, exactly.
So then you start thinking about database DevOps. And then we run into Steve's problem, which is how the heck do I maintain quality? I'm trying to do end-to-end functional testing. That takes weeks to do, maybe even months, depending on how big the project is. And I don't have time to run these tests because I'm shipping to production. So we had to figure out
how to automate
quality, right? And then same with security and so on and so forth.
Steve?
So you guys both come from a dev background, and you surface right there, right? We've been writing software together for 20 years.
Yeah.
Now the thing is with DevOps, and again, the data bears this out. It doesn't matter where the software comes from, right? Adopting these DevOps practices. If I'm shipping box software, if I'm operating box software, because sometimes we are consumers of software and we are deploying those products into our environment, and we may have some way to influence the development process, but it's coming from somewhere outside of us, right? We can still improve our operability and our ability to build quality environments and run the software well by adopting DevOps practices. So I don't think Agile software development is a prerequisite for DevOps. It is a strong component of it if you are building that software. And Agile practices are a core component of DevOps, right? So for how we manage work and how we manage the flow of work, so when we talk about DevOps and pipelines and stuff like that, I think we tend to conflate a couple of ideas: the idea of DevOps, and the idea of continuous delivery, right? And where continuous delivery is, I'm doing Agile development, and I have shippable software, and I can ship master at any particular point in time,
right?
And that is a core component of DevOps. But DevOps is more than just that process. It's all the way through the cycle, into the feedback loops. And these are things I can do if I'm not building software.
Absolutely. It's really important for us to remind people, and I'm really glad you brought this up because it's actually what I was going to ask you next. And I'm going to start off with Abel. There's more to DevOps than pipelines. Mm-hmm. What do you think a new person entering into DevOps, whether it's a team, maybe just an individual, what would you tell them is their initial focus other than pipelines and automation? What should be their first focus getting involved? Is it culture? Is it the automation? And what do you think is the first entry point, especially with people coming into a new year? Maybe they've got new jobs. What's the first start for their year in DevOps that they should focus on?
First thing you got to realize is DevOps is about continuously delivering value, right? Because if you can get that, it's about continuously delivering value. Everything else sort of falls into place, right? Pipelines, they're important to continuously deliver value. I'm going to shelve Stephen's conversation about software or not, because where I come from, I'm a software head. So it's kind of like, is this state-based or migrations-based all over again? So I'll not touch that. But, is it writing the right software correctly? I think the most important thing is realize it's about continuously delivering value. And in order to continuously deliver value correctly, you need to identify and figure out what is the culture that will work? What type of culture will work? Because if you get those two things, everything else starts to fall in place pretty naturally.
Yeah, because even to Stephen's point, what his team was trying to do, if they write the software or not, is deliver value to their end user, right?
Yeah.
Their end user might, like, you might not have built the software, but that's still his goal, right? And that does fit into it. But you're absolutely right. And I think this is why I built the team the way I built the team. When I first built the team, they said, Donovan, like, just go build a team of Donovans. And I was like, no, like, that's not what we need, right? What we need is people who make Donovan better than I would be by myself. And having people like Steve challenge both me and Abel, because otherwise we would have been running off and saying that. And now Steve has me thinking here, right? In the same way when we added Jessica to the team, right? We didn't add Jessica because she knew what the rest of us knew. We hired Jessica because she knew stuff we did not know, right? I didn't know Kubernetes. I didn't know open source. I didn't know Linux like she did, right? And she brought to the team something that none of us had, which made the team as a whole better, right? It wasn't about hiring people that all agreed. It was about having people who were all passionate about the same thing and had very different perspectives, very different. And I remember the reason that I wanted to hire Damian is the first time you and I met, you wanted to be on the DevOps interview show. And you were working for a different company at the time, but you and I both agreed during that interview that it's not about the product. And I believe if I remember correctly, you said, I don't care if you use our product or not. I just want you to do it right. And that's when I knew, I was like, I trust this guy. Right? Like I need to work with this guy at some point in the future. And that's why I came after you after that. It was like about doing the right thing. It's far more important. And having a diverse group of people and a diverse group of backgrounds, ops, Linux, open source, capitalists like me and Abel, like, it was really good to have those mindsets come into that conversation and be able to check each other. So I appreciate what Steve just said. And I'm definitely going to think about it some more. And I don't disagree with it. But yeah,
I'm sure you agree.
Yeah. It's like Agile
not
still
on
like,
the live stream at least.
Yeah. So if it's the start of the year and you're just getting into DevOps, it's sort of like saying I'm just getting into business. Right? For me, the first thing is value is the fuzziest word in that statement. Like I can quickly get to the concrete stuff around the tools. I have ideas of what the culture should look like, but what does value mean for my organization? And this is one area, especially I see technologists not necessarily want to delve into too much. Hey, I got the computer, so I can work with computers and not talk to people. That doesn't work so well, right? We have to, in order to be effectively deliver value, I have to understand what drives value for my organization.
Exactly. And it's different for every organization. And that's why I chose the word that I chose, right? And because it also allows it to apply to a lot of different areas, right? It wasn't deliver software to your end users, right? It was deliver value. And value can be delivered without changing a single line of your software. To your point, Stephen, right? Because one of the stories I tell all the time is Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You do not have to change a single line of your software to be able to survive those 2 days of the year. You might change your infrastructure, scale it out, scale it up, or both, but you didn't change a single line of the actual source code and you still delivered value. Because both sides of this organization, I should maybe stop saying both sides, all sides of your organization can help you deliver value. And that's what's really important here. So that's why I chose the word that you're doing. And I love the fact that you're double clicking on the fact that it's vague, but it's vague for a reason.
Yep. So I got us a question. Sorry, I want to make sure we get to these because we're running, we got about 12 minutes left.
Okay.
And I think this is a really good question. Where does secure DevOps come into play? Do you start the conversation with security in mind? And when do you speak to devs? So goes into more communication and how to get started, if you will. And I know, and I think you'll all agree, security is paramount.
Yeah, and not only do I think it's important, but it starts well before your pipeline, right? I tell everyone, when they talk about DevSecOps, they always want to talk about their pipeline. I'm like, hold on. If I really want to be secure, this machine better be secure. Because if I want your source code, I'm just going to steal your laptop. I'm not going to try to hack a pipeline because you're using Git. All the history and everything that I want is on the machine. So DevSecOps, in my opinion, starts from securing the devices that your devs work on and never ends because it has to be secure in production while it's running, right? So DevSecOps, to me, shift it as left as far as you can because your devs need to be thinking about security. Security is not something you want to bolt on later. Security is something you want to design into the product, just like quality. Quality should not be something that you bolt on later when you get a bug. It should be something that you design into the product itself. And what you're doing throughout your pipeline and hopefully in production is verifying and that the security has been put in place, not checking if you have a vulnerability in production, if that makes sense, right? So scan your products and your packages that you're using in your pipeline. Make sure that you're using two-factor authentication, that your machine times out, requires a password to get back into it. Like everything, like security is so much more than just the word DevSecOps make it seem like it only focuses to your pipeline. And in my opinion, security starts from the dev machine and never ends.
It starts way before. Go ahead, Jessica.
It does not start from the dev machine. It starts from the person's machine. It is everyone's responsibility. So often we talk about security and conversations somehow always will go towards the developer or then the security developer. It's everyone's responsibility. So I would say security starts with personal responsibility.
Perfect.
Own your stuff. Make sure that your environment, everything is set up before you ever get to the pipeline, just from what you said, but not just the developer. It is everyone.
Right. If you code a repo, regardless of what role you play, if you're touching any of the IP that flows through there, you need to be secure doing it.
And even not a repo, even not the developer. If you're touching operations, if you're touching infrastructure, if you're touching cloud infrastructure, do you have MFA enabled for accessing Azure or Google or Amazon? If you're also on the operations side, security has to be a mindset that is universal and everyone's responsibility and not just put off on one particular group.
Agreed.
So security is like value. And it's one of those fuzzy words because there are some things that okay, yes, these are perfectly reasonable security ideas. We should do them, but we can quickly go down a path of like how secure can I make things, right? For example, the most secure computer is one that it's powered off, unplugged from the internet, and has no data on it, right? But there's no use for that. That's a piece of metal-y, plasticky stuff, right? I can use it as a doorstop.
Right.
So as an organization, we have to determine what our tolerance for risk is, because security, as much as we want it to not be, it's a speed bump, right? And so we have to determine what speed bumps are reasonable for the product and space that we have, the data that we have, these things, and then also then like everyone said, right? It's everyone's job, defense in depth, layers of things that we can do for security, but it starts with an understanding of. We have to have a shared understanding of what secure actually means to our organization, because I can always argue against doing whatever you want to do on the basis of security.
For sure. Abel?
So I wanted to zoom out a little bit because everything that you guys say makes sense, right? Security, it starts with personal responsibility, so on and so forth. But I want to zoom out because a lot of times when people talk about security, they're talking about the app code itself, right? How do I make sure I'm not writing security holes within my app where people can easily go in and do X, Y, Z? Or I don't know, like maybe some social network that happens to have REST APIs that have no security around it. And then that's kind of a disaster if people do things like that, right? Traditionally, the way that we handled and mitigate these type of problems is developers would write code. And when they're done, they would throw it over the fence to a security auditing team that would take months combing through the code, finding all the security holes, throwing it back over the fence to get fixed, and they iterate on that until the security team says, code looks good, go ahead and ship it. Now to do that let's just say it takes a really long time, right? Far more time than if I'm shipping every 2 weeks. Maybe I'm shipping every week or multiple times a day. How do you do that, right? So Donovan earlier touched on the fact that you can shift left, right? When that's really important. So as an engineer, when I write my code, I no longer, like he said, I no longer want to bolt security on at the end with the security audit. As I'm writing my code, I need to start securing my code as I'm writing it, line for line, right? So how do we do that? When we do our check-ins, right, there are scanners that can scan the code that we checked in to find all sorts of different problems that happen. If we wanted to, we could even have our security auditing team, these are experts, right? They can be involved in our pull requests. So when I do a pull request, they can look at the 20 lines of code that changed, and they can be like, oh, this has nothing to do with security, I'm out. Plain and simple. Or they can say, oh, you didn't add HTTP headers. Okay, that's a huge problem. Let's fix it. But that's only 20 lines of code. It'll take them a couple minutes versus combing through 20,000 lines of code. So it's not like I'm saying that the security auditors don't have a role. They still do, but it's a different type of role, kind of like with QA. It's different, but it's still important. So shifting left, yes, you can still have secure apps. And I would even argue that if you do security correctly in the DevOps world, it is better security than the way that we used to do it with that full end-to-end security audit when you're done.
Cool. It's like we're nearing the end here too. So.
Good thing I shut up and stopped talking.
Thanks so much for setting this up, Jay, and giving us an opportunity, because it's not often that the league gets a chance to come together. And I'm just glad that once a league member, always a league member, because you guys don't report to me anymore. I'm not even in DevRel anymore, but we're still all passionate about DevOps, man. It's just what we do, and it's a brand that I've built that I'm never going to try to run away from, because I think it's everything we do.
The passion of all of you comes through the screen. I can see it, I can hear it, and to be honest, as someone that's seen you all present different subjects, it's quite obvious. You are dedicated to getting people to understand DevOps, to understand how they can apply it to their place of business, their project, and ultimately succeed. Because this is what I believe DevOps is mostly rooted in, is the success. And like you said, by delivering value. So before we go, give it one more read, Donovan.
DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to our end users. Yeah, actually, I got goosebumps when Jessica did it. It's like, oh, this is awesome. It's a sentence that changed my life. Like, really, it's like one sentence. Unreal.
I got to say, man, I think she said it better. I think I kind of stumble here.
You can say that now because you don't report to Donovan.
Exactly. It's awesome.
So what's everybody?
The best time I ever said it was that time in Florida, what happened right before that? Somebody like walked in the door and it was like, oh, the league's now here, or something like that. But I remember, I think that was the first time I ever saw like Donovan even getting choked up. Like when somebody else says it like that's like your baby. Like that definition is, and look at how much it's grown. It's in adults, it's in books.
It's in books, and it's crazy. Every time it gets published, it's like, I can't believe that just happened. And people have me write forwards for their books. And I'm actually looking at a book right now, Navigating DevOps Through Waterfalls, that I'm going to be talking at in a couple of days, and that the definition's in there, right? And Dono dude's in there, the little South Park figure of me. It's just like, for a sentence, like really, it's unbelievable. So yeah, just be passionate about something. It could change your life.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start saying goodbye because we got about less than 2 minutes left.
Cool.
Donovan, congratulations on your new role.
Thank
you. Whether you're a partner at Microsoft or you're just my partner and chilling out, dude, I am just glad to have you a part of this today. Steven, you have a great night. Hope you're doing okay out there. Damian, Australia's far. But I think someday I'll see you again much closer. I do miss seeing you. Jessica, you are, as always, brilliant and impressive. You provide so much information for us. No matter what it is you do, I'm always more educated listening to you. So thank you. And then Abel, I have to say something nice because I work for you. No, really, Abel, more great information. I feel like this is a crew that every time I speak with you all, you've got something brilliant to say. And so to finish up this brilliance, I want you to say one more thing. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care. Thanks so much, Jay. You did great, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
You got it, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Take care.